At this point, I'm assuming that we're pretty comfortable creating new apps and customizing them. It's been a long time since we created and customized this resource library, but we added custom columns for resource type and for who it was owned by, and that owned by list is actually a lookup to somewhere else in the site. Let's imagine that we create a resource library elsewhere, perhaps in the Landon Hotel for New York City. Perhaps we create one for Detroit, and it's exactly the same. So we create the list, and we customize the list, and we add the resource type, and we enter those resource types, we add the owned by. I hope before you do this too many times, you stop and watch this movie, because we have another possibility, something called a content type. A content type allows us to create a custom type. When we created this resource library, the type that was used was what's called a document. But we can extend that. We can add our own custom columns for resource type, for example, for other columns that we believe are necessary to at least one type of document that we would create. And we could call this our documents, for example, or typed documents, if we wish, whatever we would call it that would make the most sense. And that new content type, then, could be used rather than using documents as the content type for the next resource library that we create. A content type is a happy integration of metadata and items. And every content type is based on an existing content type. You always create new content types using some inheritance. By default, SharePoint includes a boatload of content types. To view the default content types or the default content types and any custom content types that have been added, let's go to Site Settings on our site. And in the Web Designer Galleries, there's a link for Site Content Types. When you create a content type, it's available to that site and all subsites. So if I believe that the custom content type for our documents that we might create would be used by Team Landon New York City, Team Landon Detroit, Team Landon Atlanta, and so on, it would be prudent to create this content type in the Landon Hotel intranet site so we would all have access to it. But here are the content types. They are arranged in groups: business intelligence, community content, digital asset, and so on. If we look, for example, at the digital asset content types, what we'll see are content types for audio, video, and image files, as well as rich media assets and video renditions. 5 content types. Let's look at documents. We've been using the document content type, the basic page content type we've used. We've created a form, and that's a content type. Our links list. So you begin to see how all of these different document content types are things that we're already familiar with. We haven't used the Dublin core columns, which has nothing to do with Ireland and everything to do with Ohio, but we have used wiki pages, web part pages. Each time that we've been creating something new that's stored in the document library or the site pages, we've been using a document content type. Finally, let's look briefly at the list content types, and this will become abundantly clear. Announcements, contacts, events, posts, tasks, links. As we have been creating new lists, they have been created using these default content types. Now, even though there are all of these built-in content types, there are valid reasons to customize them for our organization because Landon Hotels has some different requirements. We would far rather create a custom content type for our financial documents, for our employee lists, than requiring our users or requiring our IT staff to continually modify and customize individual libraries. By creating a custom content type, I create consistency. Also, when we look, for example, at our document content type, we've used this document content type, document, to store everything from a diagram to a contract to a PDF that's a brochure, and yet we might have wanted to track different information about each and every one of those types of documents. Therefore, the document content type might be a good start, but it may not be granular enough to allow us to manage the broad variety of documents that we have in our organization. In the next movie, we're going to create a custom content type for land and hotels.